From Kansas State University, this is Agriculture Today. Eric Atkinson here. Sarah Moyer has the helm during the first half hour. She'll talk with the interim dean of agriculture at K-State, Ernie Minton, as he'll look back at some of the major agricultural research and education accomplishments for the college in 2018. Sarah also talks with the Kansas Agriculture and Rural Leadership Program's Jill Zimmerman about submitting applications for the next KARL class, which will be chosen this coming spring, and Jill will talk about the upcoming trip by the current class members to Cuba. Further ahead on this week's K-State Horticulture segment, Ward Upham about selecting trees for firewood and the variation in heat value among the different species. All this and more next on Agriculture Today.
While many people know hunger is an issue in developing countries, it is also a problem in our own backyards. In 2010, 1 in 7 Kansans struggled to put adequate food on the table. 2 K-State research and extension programs are tackling this problem. The Family Nutrition Program and Expanded Food and Nutrition Education Program reach thousands of Kansans in more than 70 counties. They learn how to eat healthy with a low budget. For more information about these programs, visit ksre.ksu.edu.
Welcome back to Agriculture Today. I'm Sarah Moyer, and we have a special guest in to walk through a 2018 year in review with the K-State College of Agriculture. Pleasure to have on Interim Dean Ernie Minton. Good to have you on here.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Happy to be here.
The college working in 3 main categories: teaching, research, and extension. And we had Director of Extension Greg Hadley in yesterday to talk about extension some, but plenty to talk about in all of those areas. Would you like to go ahead and give some highlights from the teaching aspect in the College of Agriculture?
Sure, we can start there. First of all, I don't think it's news to anyone that we're in the shadow year, they've been calling it, of a transition to a new budget model. And one of the key factors in delivering resources down to the colleges in this new budget model are revenues from tuition. So part of what K-State is about, and this is not just the college's effort, but the university's experienced enrollment decline over the last several years, and they're really trying to take a look at how to reverse that trend with strategies both in-state and, as importantly, out-of-state as well. And that would be a reflection of what we would be focused on in the college. Now, I would say that focusing on out-of-state recruitment is not a new thing for us. We are already at approximately 30% out-of-staters in the college. We're interested in thinking more strategically about other opportunities that can bring both Kansas students and a strategic number of out-of-state students into the college going forward as well. Prior to my even coming over to the dean's office in 2008, then Dean Fred Cholick charged Dr. Boggs, who is our Associate Dean for Academic Programs, to really focus on student recruitment, and so Don and his group did that, and our enrollment in the college grew really nicely since 2008, probably peaked in about 2014, and then has backed off a little bit since then. So the point of that is our enrollment has already grown substantially and has plateaued off a little bit. So yes, we're interested in continuing to grow numbers, but that would be, on the backside of substantial growth that occurred already in the college.
What are some of the efforts, what the College of Agriculture is doing with the global campus? That's one that's maybe not thought of as frequently.
Yeah, I think what we're doing specifically with regard to global campus is working with the leadership task force and really looking at those programs which have an opportunity to grow student numbers, particularly with global campus. This isn't an exhaustive list, but the Master's in Agribusiness, that's a very successful program within agricultural economics. In addition, we need to rebuild our numbers in the food science program as well, and that's another program that has an opportunity for expansion in global campus. There is a possibility, too. We'd certainly like to grow numbers in all of the degree programs in the grain science department. both on campus and potentially off campus as well. There's a new emphasis within the feed science program related specifically to pet food that we think maybe has a lot of attraction to maybe not our typical ag student, but students who maybe come from urban settings and so on who want interaction with domestic animals. This pet food option maybe offers that opportunity to them.
Transitioning here to a research area, one push has seemed to be undergraduate research, and of course there's always a lot of research going on with regular faculty here at K-State. Would you talk to what areas has K-State been a leader in this year?
First thing that comes to mind happened really very early in my tenure as interim dean, and we had the great fortune to be awarded a non-competitive renewal for 3 of our 4 Feed the Future USAID-funded innovation labs. So that's big news because we're really thinking about our program in research, certainly domestically, certainly focused on Kansas and the region, but recognizing also that a number of the things we do are very global in nature. Our breeding programs, in particular, wheat and grain sorghum, and then lesser known and lesser activity, but our work with millet as well, puts us in an international setting. So that's one of the benefits of having our USAID Feed the Future labs, to capitalize on our expertise in grain sorghum and wheat, and then to take that globally, to take advantage too of the connections, in particular our Associate Dean for International Programs, Dr. Nina Lilia, has, and also the expertise that our new interim Associate Dean for Research, Dr. Marty Draper, has with regard to his connections back to USDA. Those are some things that come to mind right off the top on the research side.
With the mention of several of those interim positions, let's go ahead and talk about leadership in the College of Agriculture, how there have been some transitions here in 2018 and looking ahead to 2019, likely to have some things in motion.
That's right, Sarah, a lot of moving parts. I interviewed for and was fortunate to be named the interim dean and interim director here in the college. And of course, when that happened, my position as Associate Dean for Research, Associate Director of Research in the college and K-State Research and Extension was vacant. Dr. Marty Draper came over. He was the department head in plant pathology, and so that created an opening. Now Dr. Megan Kennelly has been identified as the interim department head in plant pathology. In just about a month, Dr. John Ruberson, the current head in entomology, will be moving on to a similar position at the University of Nebraska. Dr. Brian McCornack will be the interim head of entomology. Prior to all of that, Dr. Curtis Kastner retired as the director of the Food Science Institute. Dr. Randy Phoebus was identified a little over a year ago, my recollection is correct there, as the interim director of the Food Science Institute. We've just recently interviewed for the permanent director. We haven't quite closed the loop on that, so I can't give a lot of specifics, but we're really very hopeful we're going to get a nice hire out of that process. Similarly, in animal science, Dr. Evan Titkemeyer is the interim department head there. We have a search committee that's formed, and the position announcement is out. Dr. Don Boggs is chairing that committee, so we'll be searching for permanent leadership in animal science early in 2019. Dr. Gary Przinski, who had been the head of agronomy, left for a position at Ohio State University. And so Dr. Mickey Ransom is the interim department head of agronomy. And so we'll be slotting the search for the permanent agronomy head sometime in 2019 as well. Just to close that loop, the search for permanent dean of agriculture, permanent director of K-State Research and Extension, is the purview of the provost's office. So I've been told by Provost Tabor and others that that process will occur in the first part of 2019 as well.
The message there may just be to pay attention to news coming out at the different departments, as the College of Agriculture has some new faces potentially coming in, but also just people moving into different roles. a lot of moving pieces, as you mentioned. Finally, let's wrap up here with a few notes about extension and some goals for 2019.
So you mentioned Dr. Greg Hadley was in for an interview. So as I gave my college overview a few weeks back, one of the things that I focused on, of course, we always have things going on in ag and natural resources and family consumer sciences and so forth, 4-H as well. One of the areas that maybe doesn't get mentioned as often is our focus on community vitality, and so I just call that out. Local communities have a number of challenges, population challenges, which create other kinds of challenges around access to grocery stores, health care, other kinds of things. And there is a good deal of great extension work that's going on to try and help communities remain viable.
What message do you have going forward here as the College of Agriculture looks to the new year?
Well, I think that certainly 2019, as we've discussed, we're going to have potentially some more certainty with regard to where the permanent leadership is going to be in the academic units and hopefully at the dean's level as well. In addition to that, though, we've got some facility challenges here on campus, and these are complex. So there's a good deal of deferred maintenance in many of our buildings that our academic departments are housed in. And so we've been challenged by the president to really identify what our priorities are going forward, and we're in the process of doing that. There are some opportunities, perhaps at the state level, and maybe with the passage of the Farm Bill, maybe some opportunities on the federal side as well, to really kind of triage what our greatest needs are and to get to work on some of those. The planning process, at least, I think will get going in earnest in 2019. So that's another thing we're really kind of looking forward to.
Plenty of work to do and plenty going on in the K-State College of Agriculture, and it's been great to have you on, Ernie, to share some comments about what the year's been like and what's ahead.
Wonderful. Thanks for having me.
That, once again, is the interim dean for the K-State College of Agriculture, Ernie Minton. We'll have more here on Agriculture Today.
What is radon? Home exposure to radon gas is the leading cause of lung cancer death in the United States for non-smokers. In Kansas, 1 in 4 homes will test at or above the EPA action level. The Surgeon General recommends all homes be tested and fixed if necessary. Visit kansasradonprogram.org for more information. Test, fix, save a life. This message brought to you by the Kansas Radon Program, the Kansas Association of Broadcasters, and this station.
Welcome back to Agriculture Today. I'm Sarah Moyer. We are in for a treat from the Kansas Agriculture and Rural Leadership Program. The KARL program is another name that it commonly goes by, and in for an update, President Jill Zimmerman. Good to have you on, Jill.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate the opportunity.
Go ahead and give a brief overview for those unfamiliar with the KARL program. What are some of its main goals for the program in Kansas?
Yeah, thank you. So the main goals and what we aspire to help create an engaging experience for the up to 30 participants that can apply in the program. And so these folks come from all walks of life. Some are involved directly in production agriculture, and some are involved in our rural communities, either through employment or other ventures that they may have. And, really at the end of the day, we want to create an engaging experience for folks, and so that they create a networking and a relationship opportunity. They learn about Kansas and all that we have, and they also engage in conversations of things that we can take home at the end of the day to a leadership experience that we can either somehow imply in our daily lives, whether that's at work, sometimes that's at home. Somehow we can make an impact and be better tomorrow than what we were today.
The KARL program is accepting applications for the 15th class, and that marks then, because the classes run every couple years, the 30th anniversary for the program here in 2019. So that's exciting. Would you like to first talk about how people apply or why people would be motivated to apply? You touched on that a little bit.
as you mentioned, we are accepting applications for Class 15, and also we will be celebrating 30 years of the KARL program. And so it's an exciting time for us. We are anticipating really a renewed interest, if you will, in people participating in the program. So folks that range in age from 25 to 55 can apply to be a part of KARL. It's an application process. You can find out more details on our website at karlprogram.com. All of that is available online, so folks can submit their application, and they can even start and stop the process online and still make application. So this is our first year that we've had that totally available online, and so we're excited to have that opportunity available for folks.
Quite a unique experience for Kansans. And talking about even being able to stop and start, the applications are due April 15th, so they do have some time to go in and maybe look at the application and review it and think about if KARL is a fit for them for something that they're interested in applying for. You mentioned only 30 participants per class. Is that correct?
Yeah, so there's up to 30 participants. And so as people consider whether they want to make application to the program, I'm a graduate of the program as well as now in the role that I am today. And so certainly I'm biased, but I think it's a great way to experience our state and to create those networking opportunities and also learn. So, we'll have 10 in-state seminars over the course of 2 years, and then we always will end year one by having a leadership seminar in Washington, D.C., and then each class has an experience overseas internationally. Class 14 slated to go to Cuba in March of 2019, and KARL's recently had 2 alumni and supporter trips that have had the opportunity to go to Cuba. We're excited about this opportunity, and I know the board of directors for KARL is also excited about the Class 14 having that opportunity.
So really the idea of the KARL program is to invest in leaders here in Kansas and help them go back, be a resource in their community, and then also give them a foothold in different ideas pertaining to national leadership and international study as well with agriculture. Would you give an example about some of the activities that Class 14 will be participating in Cuba as they go overseas? And would you give an example of when they participated in their trip to the Capitol? What was that like, or what did they say they gained from that experience?
Yeah, so Washington, D.C., we traveled to Washington, D.C. in February of this year, so 2018. That's an opportunity where they get to have one-on-one conversations with legislative senators and representatives and really get to talk to key people that are making policy and decisions that directly relate to what our business each and every day for those involved in every aspect of agriculture. And our takeaways from D.C., that was a short trip, but yet it's a neat experience. And then Cuba, we spent 7 days in Cuba in April. Seeing where that country is, it's a different country. It's 90 miles from the coast of Florida, and yet it's vastly different from what we have in the States. So there's a lot of opportunities for us to create relationships and opportunities as we go to visit other countries. Have an appreciation of what we have for Kansas agriculture, agriculture in the United States, and then also look for ways in which we can be helpful to people in foreign countries and how can we help them be better agriculturists.
That piece of leadership comes through in some of the things that you're saying, and obviously that's the type of people that are applying to be in the KARL program. They're seeking out a leadership opportunity. Would you like to share about how the program is preparing for its anniversary and what former KARL participants have to look forward to in 2019?
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for the question. So this class 14, will have a graduation event in Manhattan, April 6th of 2019. And we're looking at inviting back former participants from those classes back in. I'm not sure who we'll make a special invite to. Will it be classes 1, 2, and 3? But we want to make more of a gala out of it and a celebration out of that event. Because if there's one thing that, Sarah, that has been in the 15 months that I've been in my current role is that people really appreciate the opportunity to network and relationship build. And we all know from our experiences in our daily lives that relationships and the things that we do are really, they're the cornerstone of being able to be successful and do anything, is being able to develop those relationships and things. And we feel like KARL, we do a really good job of that. And so in addition to the leadership and in addition to the curriculum and the experiences they get to have, makes for a neat opportunity for a young person to apply.
So in total, that makes about 400 Kansans having sharpened their leadership skills and participated in the KARL program, that 2-year program, and exciting that another class will be selected next spring and start participating in the fall of 2019. April 15th is the deadline for the next set of applications. The online application, once again, is found at KARLprogram.com. Have you seen KARL participants go back and impact their communities with what they've learned through the KARL program?
Well, we had a neat experience this year, and this is just one example of many for the current class, but there's a young man that's a superintendent of schools in a relatively very rural part of Kansas, and so we had 2 ag educators in our current class, and through conversations that they engaged with during their first year of the program, the superintendent went back to schools, and they now have started an ag education program in that school. And so that's the only one in that county. That's a neat success story, and that's just one of many. We've got alumni that serve in lots of different roles in their communities. So, certainly, KARL, if we can just have a small part in it, enabling and engaging folks to take on and to think more and to create more opportunities for people to connect, then I think at the end of the day we've been successful.
Will you talk about, just for a moment here, the time commitment?
Yeah, so as you look at that 2-year, as we shared, it's a 2-year opportunity, and as you think about your time commitment, it will begin in November, and they go through March of each year approximately. So we look at probably 25 days each of the 2 years that you'll be away from home or away from your business, and think, by the time we spend a week in Washington, D.C., and, a week and a half or so in a foreign country, it's about 50 days over the 2-year period.
The way that people apply, again, is through the KARL website. That's KARLprogram.com. That's KARL, standing for Kansas Agriculture and Rural Leadership. Jill, what other comments would you like to share with our listeners about the KARL program?
Certainly we have an open door, and we want to be better. We want to be better tomorrow than we were today. And so the only way that we can make KARL a better program is by continuing to engage in conversations, not only with our alumni and supporters, but people that are passionate and believe in Kansas and rural Kansas and agriculture. And so, we never want to be discouraging of folks that might have ideas or things that we think would be of a benefit to the program. And so, that's what we offer, is for folks to don't be afraid to reach out, don't be afraid to ask questions or engage, because then as we think about how our circles overlap and things like that, then we're all better at the end of the day.
Well, congratulations again on coming up on the 30th anniversary mark for the KARL program. That's a good accomplishment and quite a mile marker for the program itself. But thank you for coming on and sharing today.
Yeah, thank you.
That, once again, was president of the KARL program, Jill Zimmerman, giving us an update on the applications being open for Class 15 and, again, the 30-year mark for the KARL program impacting Kansas. The Kansas Agricultural and Rural Leadership Program is a nonprofit organization, so donations to the KARL program can be considered as such with their 501c3 classification for tax purposes. Looking towards the end of the year, if you'd like to make a donation, you can go online to the KARL website, once again, as has been mentioned, KARLprogram.com. Financial support from those who believe in the future of Kansas and furthering of the educational programs is, of course, always welcome. I'm Sarah Moyer, and we'll have more here soon on Agriculture Today.
Did you know every Kansas farmer feeds 128 plus people?
Kansas farmers are hard workers, dependable, authentic, and sensitive.
Not only do farmers put food on your table, but they put clothes on your back and fuel in your car.
For more information about Kansas farmers, visit K-State Research and Extension online or stop by your local extension office. This message has been brought to you by the K-State Animal Sciences Leadership Academy participants.
Around now, too, on this Agriculture Today, our weekly horticulture segment, and we're going to stretch that topic a bit We're right on the verge of the true winter weather in Kansas. We've had doses of it a time or two here already, but the colder weather will settle in for good very soon now. And what better time to talk firewood and selecting wood for good burning potential. K-State Research and Extension horticulturist Ward Upham does a little bit of firewood harvesting on his own, constantly, as a matter of fact, this time of the year. So, Ward, it's important, if you're intending to get the maximum heat value out of your firewood, to know what you're doing, in essence.
That's right. Not all firewood is created equal. Actually, a pound of cottonwood has just as much value or heat value as a pound of hedge. But notice I said a pound of each. What firewood is sold as is not in the pounds, it's sold as a volume. In other words, usually it's going to be a cord, and a cord is 4 feet wide by 8 feet long by 4 feet high, or 128 cubic feet. It doesn't have to be that 4 by 8 by 4, but it has to be 128 cubic feet in order to be a full cord. And so even though the pound of each is the same, it takes a little over 2 cords of cottonwood to equal the heat value of 1 cord of something like hedge. And so there's a lot of difference among these woods. And so you kind of have to know what you're harvesting in order to know how much wood you're going to need in order to get you through a season.
Heat value is determined by the actual plant tissue and its thickness, its durability, what?
Yeah, it's density. So if it's more dense, then you're going to get more heat value. If you've ever picked up a totally dry log of something like cottonwood and compare it to Osage orange, there's a huge, huge difference. You know, that Osage orange can be twice as heavy, a little over twice as heavy.
Let's look at the various wood types and what they bring to the table in heat value. And this is expressed in common terms as BTUs, those thermal units, right?
Yes, it is. And so what we're looking at here, the ratings I give you, is million of BTUs. Okay, so for example, we mentioned cottonwood not being very good. It only has 15.9 million BTUs per cord. So it's going to be at the bottom of our heap. Following that are going to be kind of our elms. You know, things like American elm, Siberian elm. Those two are also very stringy, and also they often have a fairly thick bark, and that bark just seems to go to ash. And so if you can take that bark off, it's dried long enough that you can take the bark off, then that'll really help cut down on the ash. Now, red elm is a little bit better. It's not quite as low in heat value as the other types of elm are. Sycamore is about the same. Sycamore fits in kind of with the elms. And then you get into things that are a little bit better. The oaks. Now, they make really good firewood. You know, talking about red or chinkapin or whatever you happen to have. If you have it available, they burn nice. They make a nice bed of coals. They're just a nice type of wood to burn. And then a little bit up from that, they're right around 25 million BTUs. And honey locust is between 25 and 26. Problem with it is it's going to spark. And if it sparks, you don't want to use that in an open fireplace. Now, what I have is a wood boiler, so it doesn't bother me a bit because it's closed. But in an open fireplace, you do not want to use honey locust.
Honey locust has that additional issue as well if you're harvesting the male honey locust.
That's if you're harvesting something that isn't thornless, it is a pain to deal with because it has really long thorns. Those thorns burn really well, but just to harvest them and get them stacked, you really have to watch where you put your hands.
You'll go through a lot of gloves.
You will. It's a pain to work with. About the same heat value as mulberry. And I like mulberry, except it's going to take 2 years to dry it. What most people, if they don't like mulberry, the reason they don't like it is because it doesn't burn very easily, and that's usually because they just don't dry it enough. It needs to dry 2 years. And once it's been dried 2 years, then it works really good. After that, probably black locust, probably my favorite wood of all. Black locust is usually grows in groves, and so you can cut it down. When it's young, it has these little thorns, but once it's mature, you just don't see them that much. And so it's a dense wood, burns really nice bed of coals, and so it's one of my favorites. And then the last one, the top of the heap as far as BTUs, is going to be Osage orange or hedge. It has between 32 and 33 million BTUs. Now, black locust, I mentioned, is 28, so there's still a bit of a difference there. The only problem with Osage orange is, of course, it does spark as well, so you don't want it in an open fireplace. The other thing is I won't burn it by itself. I'm going to mix it because it puts out so much heat. So you have to be a little bit careful with some of these woods. But they can have some really nice properties if you're trying to, like I'm trying to heat a home. And I'm heating water that goes into a boiler that goes to radiators. And so that really works well.
You can think of it in these terms. If you have a really hot type of wood, like an Osage orange, you're basically diluting that with, say, a cottonwood in a mix. And this works very well.
It does. It does. So just with that, just make sure you mix it so you don't, some fireboxes aren't able to handle all that heat. And so that will help keep it under control. So you get plenty of heat, but not too much.
Now, you also have on the list, and yet to be mentioned, black walnut as a firewood.
That's right. It's about the same as elm. It seems to burn a little dirty. I mean, you get a lot of off-gassing from it. And so I do burn a little bit of black walnut because my dad planted a bunch of it, and the trees that aren't going to really make anything I'll take out. But it does burn. It does burn pretty well. It's just that it's kind of dirty.
If you have a property that has fallen trees and there are various species, why, once again, you can break those down into firewood, mix and match, and come up with a good source of overall heat for whatever dwelling you're talking about here. Ward, we want to mention something as well that's highly publicized, quite honestly, lately, and that is the urging that folks burn their firewood, harvest and burn locally. This has to do with a pest that is carried on firewood called the emerald ash borer. It's proven very devastating to ash trees.
It is. It'll probably be to ash what Dutch elm disease was to American elm. And so this is a very serious disease. And though that insect that carries the disease does travel, it travels very slowly. When we see that disease travel from one place to another very quickly, it's because people moved firewood. They moved firewood from an infested area to one that wasn't. And once that insect gets a toehold in a place, it's going to stay. And so if you harvest firewood, make sure you burn it locally, just so you don't have problems with that.
And if you're purchasing firewood, purchase locally as well.
That's right.
Well, good tips here on selecting firewood for the optimum heating through the balance of this winter, which is actually technically just getting underway. Ward, thank you, and happy holidays.
Thank you.
He is Ward Upham, horticulturist, K-State Research and Extension. Well, that's our time for today. We appreciate you being along with us, and please rejoin us this same time tomorrow, won't you? Until then, and for Sarah Moyer, Eric Atkinson for Agriculture Today over the K-State Radio Network.